It started as just another school assignment, an ordinary research project on corporate ethics. But for Barron Trump, this wasn't just homework. He wanted to dive deeper, to understand how corporations truly operate behind the scenes. What began as a routine investigation soon turned into something far more explosive. As Barron sifted through financial reports and company records, he noticed patterns that didn't add up. Hidden transactions, questionable partnerships, and suspicious internal memos hinted at something sinister. The more he researched, the more disturbing the truth became. He had unknowingly stumbled upon evidence of corruption within a major corporation, one with global influence. At first, no one believed him. After all, he was just a student. But when his findings became too compelling to ignore, everything changed. His school project would go on to expose a scandal so massive that it forced the company's CEO to resign in disgrace. The media picked up the story, the internet exploded, and even government officials took notice. No one could have predicted that a simple classroom assignment would shake the corporate world to its core. But Barron Trump had done the unthinkable, and now the world was watching. Barron Trump had always been known for his intelligence and curiosity, but no one expected a simple school project to turn into a national controversy. It all began when his teacher assigned the class a research project on corporate ethics. The task was straightforward. Pick a well-known company, analyze its business practices, and present findings on whether the company followed ethical guidelines. While most students chose companies based on their personal interests, tech giants, fashion brands, or fast food chains, Barron wanted to go deeper. He wanted to investigate something that truly mattered, something with real-world impact. After some thought, he selected a massive corporation with a strong public image, one that seemed untouchable. To the outside world, it was a leader in its industry, known for innovation and philanthropy. But Barron had a feeling there was more to the story. He started with public reports, reading through annual financial statements and company disclosures. At first, everything seemed normal. The company was profitable, its leadership well-respected, and its reputation pristine. But as he dug further, certain details stood out. There were inconsistencies in financial reports, minor at first, but enough to raise questions. Then, buried in legal documents and shareholder meetings, Barron found references to undisclosed partnerships and offshore accounts. His instincts told him something was wrong, but he needed more evidence. He turned to investigative journalism archives, SEC filings, and whistleblower reports. That's when the puzzle started coming together. The corporation wasn't just cutting corners. It was actively engaging in fraudulent activities. Tax evasion, environmental violations, employee mistreatment, and shady political donations were just the beginning. Barron's research became an obsession. He stayed up late cross-referencing documents, watching past interviews with company executives, and analyzing reports that most people overlooked. As he connected the dots, a disturbing pattern emerged. The company had been inflating its earnings to deceive investors. It had secretly funneled money into offshore accounts to avoid paying taxes. It had silenced employees who spoke out against unethical business practices. It had manipulated government policies by donating to key political figures. What shocked Barron the most was that no one had exposed this before. It was all hidden in plain sight, buried under layers of legal jargon and corporate misdirection. If he, a high school student, could uncover this much, what else was being hidden? As he pieced together his findings, he realized the weight of what he had discovered. This wasn't just a school project anymore. He was sitting on information that could bring down an entire corporation. But the real question was, what would happen if he actually presented it? Barron Trump knew he had stumbled upon something big. What started as a simple school project had now turned into a full-blown investigation into one of the most powerful corporations in the country. The deeper he dug, the clearer it became. This wasn't just a case of minor financial misreporting or corporate greed. This was systemic corruption, covered up by layers of bureaucracy, hidden accounts, and carefully crafted public statements. At first, Barron hesitated. Could he really expose a billion-dollar corporation just through his school project? The idea seemed ridiculous. After all, professional journalists and financial analysts had failed to bring this corruption to light. But as he went over his research again and again, the evidence was undeniable. If he didn't say something, who would? The real breakthrough came when Barron decided to contact a former employee of the corporation, someone who had resigned under mysterious circumstances. After hours of searching through LinkedIn and old news articles, he found a name: Daniel Carter, a former financial analyst for the company. Reaching out was a risk. Barron wasn't sure if Carter would even respond, let alone confirm anything. But after a carefully worded email explaining his research, Barron received a reply. Carter agreed to speak, but only under strict confidentiality. In their conversation, Carter revealed everything. He had left the company after discovering fraudulent activities in its accounting. According to him, the corporation had been inflating its revenue numbers, misleading investors, and moving money through offshore shell companies. The worst part? The CEO and board members were fully aware of it and had been covering their tracks for years. "This company is built on deception," Carter said. "They silence whistleblowers, threaten employees, and manipulate regulators. If you found what I think you have, you're sitting on a bombshell." Barron couldn't believe what he was hearing. His research was no longer just speculation, it was real. This wasn't just about a school project anymore. This was about the truth. The moment Barron decided to include all his findings in his school presentation, he knew he was taking a risk. A corporation this powerful wouldn't just sit back and let a high school student expose them. There would be consequences. He confided in his teacher, unsure of what to do next. Instead of discouraging him, his teacher was stunned by his findings. "This is bigger than a school project," she said. "If what you're saying is true, you might need to go public with this." That's when things started to get strange. A day after his conversation with Carter, Barron noticed unusual activity on his computer. His emails were being flagged for suspicious login attempts. An unknown number called his phone several times, but when he answered, the line went dead. A message board he had been using to verify financial documents was suddenly taken offline. It was as if someone knew what he was doing, and they were trying to stop him. Determined not to back down, Barron made one last effort to solidify his case. He went through recent investor calls, searching for inconsistencies in the company's statements. That's when he found the final piece of evidence: an internal report leaked by an anonymous source, proving beyond doubt that the CEO had knowingly manipulated financial records. With this document, Barron had everything he needed. The only question left was, would he have the courage to present it? Barron Trump knew that once he presented his findings, there would be no turning back. This wasn't just a school project anymore. It had become an exposé that could bring down one of the most powerful corporations in the country. The day of the presentation arrived, and the entire school auditorium was packed. Students, teachers, and even a few local reporters who had caught wind of the project were in attendance. But Barron wasn't just presenting to his class. He was about to challenge a billion-dollar empire. As Barron stepped onto the stage, the room fell silent. He took a deep breath, clicked the first slide, and began speaking. He laid out the corporation's history, its rise to power, and the financial discrepancies he had uncovered. Then, he revealed the leaked report. Gasps filled the auditorium. The document, which had been hidden from the public, showed that the company's CEO and top executives had knowingly falsified financial records to deceive investors. The fraud wasn't just speculation anymore. It was undeniable. The audience was in shock. Students whispered to each other. Teachers exchanged nervous glances. Even the reporters in the back of the room were furiously taking notes. But then, something unexpected happened. The corporation fights back. Midway through Barron's presentation, his laptop screen suddenly went black. A message popped up: unauthorized content detected. Presentation terminated. The school's IT administrator rushed to the stage, confused and overwhelmed. Someone had remotely accessed the school's network and shut down Barron's slides. A few moments later, Barron's phone buzzed with an anonymous text message. "Stop now. This is bigger than you." Barron's heart raced. This wasn't just a coincidence. Someone was trying to silence him. But he refused to back down. Thinking quickly, he turned to the audience and spoke with conviction. "They don't want you to see this," he said. "But the truth always finds a way out." With that, He pulled out printed copies of the leaked report and handed them to the reporters in the room. If they wanted to shut down his presentation, they would have to shut down the entire press. The crowd erupts. As the reporters skimmed through the documents, their expressions changed from skepticism to shock. One of them immediately left the room to make a phone call. The crowd sensed something historic was happening. Students pulled out their phones, taking pictures and live streaming the moment. Within minutes, social media was flooded with posts about Barron's revelation. It was too late for the corporation to contain the damage. The story was already out. Barron had just exposed one of the biggest corporate scandals of the decade, and the world was watching. The moment Barron Trump's school project went public, it spread like wildfire. Within hours, major news outlets picked up the story, and headlines across the country exposed the shocking corruption that had been hidden for years. Social media erupted with hashtags demanding justice, and financial analysts scrambled to assess the damage. The corporation's stock plummeted overnight, losing billions in value as investors panicked. As the controversy grew, pressure mounted on the company's CEO to address the allegations. At first, he denied everything. In a hastily arranged press conference, he dismissed Barron's project as misinformation and a misguided school experiment. But the leaked documents were undeniable, and reporters relentlessly pressed him with questions. Then came the breaking point. A whistleblower, one of the company's former accountants, stepped forward with even more damning evidence. Internal emails surfaced, proving that the CEO had not only been aware of the fraudulent activities, but had personally authorized cover-ups. With no way out, the CEO had no choice but to resign. In a formal statement, he announced that he was stepping down to allow the company to move forward. But the public saw it for what it was, a forced resignation. Barron's revelation triggered a full-scale government investigation. Regulatory agencies launched audits, lawsuits piled up, and executives faced criminal charges. Several high-ranking officials within the corporation were subpoenaed, and the company was forced to pay massive fines. The scandal became one of the biggest financial fraud cases of the decade. Meanwhile, legal experts debated whether Barron himself could be subpoenaed to testify, given that his findings had ignited the entire investigation. Some called him a whistleblower, while others labeled him a troublemaker. But one thing was certain. His school project had done what no journalist, investigator, or government agency had managed to do for years. Despite the chaos unfolding around him, Barron remained surprisingly calm. When asked by reporters how he felt about bringing down a billion-dollar corporation, he simply said, "I was just doing my homework." His humble response only made the public admire him more. Social media flooded with praise for Barron's courage. People compared him to famous whistleblowers and investigative journalists. Others joked that he should be given an honorary degree in finance. Even celebrities weighed in, commending him for exposing the truth. However, there were also those who weren't happy. Powerful business figures warned that Barron had set a dangerous precedent, and conspiracy theories swirled that he had been used by political forces. But none of that mattered. The truth was out, and there was no turning back. In the end, Barron's school project became more than just an assignment. It was a wake-up call to the corporate world. Universities began using his case as an example in business ethics classes. His teacher, initially unaware of the scale of the project, was stunned and later praised him for his dedication. What started as a simple research paper ended up taking down one of the most powerful CEOs in the country. And as Barron walked through his school halls, he couldn't help but wonder, what would he uncover next? What started as an ordinary school project turned into one of the most shocking corporate scandals of the decade. Barron Trump, without any intention of making headlines, managed to expose corruption at the highest level, forcing a powerful CEO to resign and triggering a full-scale investigation. His simple research, something any student might have overlooked, became a catalyst for justice. The world watched as a high school student did what entire regulatory agencies had failed to do for years. Some hailed him as a hero, praising his intellect and courage. Others, especially those in the business world, feared what this meant for the future. Could more students uncover hidden corruption? Had Barron set a new precedent for young minds challenging the elite? As news outlets moved on to the next big story, one thing remained clear. This wasn't just a school project anymore. It was proof that anyone, regardless of age or status, could make a difference. And for Barron, it was only the beginning. Because if a single school assignment could take down a CEO, what else was possible? The world had no choice but to pay attention.